Once again, welcome everyone to this session. My name is Amr, and I study digital systems and design in the School of Electrical Engineering, and I'll be your host today. So let's get started. So what you'll be expecting today in this webinar is a panel discussion with the three of our lovely students, and we will be discussing what it's like to study a master's degree in the field of science, technology, and engineering at Aalto University. And as previously mentioned, you can drop any questions that you have in the Q&A section, and they will be answered at the end of this presentation. And any questions regarding admissions and applying can be answered in tomorrow's webinar by the admissions services. All right, so here are our panelists, and if you could introduce yourselves, that would be great. Let's start with Willow.
Hi, my name is Willow. I'm from Canada. I'm studying at Aalto University in the Biochemical Engineering for Sustainable Bioeconomy program, BioSub for short. It's a joint degree program, so I'm here for a year, and I'm in the last year of my master's.
Thank you. And then Chen Yu.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Chen Yu, and I came from China. I'm second year master student in human-computer interaction, and since it's 2-year program, so I already been here for 1 year already. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. And then Simone.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Simone. I'm from Italy, and I'm in my first year of the EIT Urban Mobility Master School program. It's also a double degree program, so I'll be here for 1 year, and then I'll move to another university next year. And I'm in the Sustainable Urban Mobility Transitions track of the program. So nice to meet you all, and I'm part of the School of Engineering, as you can see.
Thank you very much. So let's now go on to our first theme, studies. So would Willow like to start by telling us what got you to choose Aalto University as your place of study?
Yeah, so Aalto University participates in a number of joint degree programs. Simone also is participating in one. For me, I was looking to get a different experience than something that I would have gotten in Canada. I'm from Alberta, which is very oil prominent place. So studying chemical engineering, you get one very a strong influence of kind of the dominant industry. But then Aalto University, also in Finland, is a country that's well recognized for innovation in the bio-based materials space, which is something that has interested me for quite a long time. And so I especially wanted to come here in order to learn more about using forest resources to make materials in a more sustainable way than we currently do.
Thank you. And then how about Chen Yu? Why did you choose Aalto University?
Yeah, I think for me it's very intuitive because I came out Aalto when it's 2019, and there's like an activity called Junction 2019. And I went here, I found it's a pretty beautiful campus here, and it's autumn as well, and everything is cool. And I want to come here for my master studies, so I just came here. And also, I think human-computer interaction is like a top major in our school, so it's nice to be here.
Yes, that's great. And finally, Simone, what drove you to pick Aalto University?
Yeah, so for me, I did my bachelor's in Italy, so in the southern part of Europe, where normally studies are carried out on a theoretical basis, a lot of theory, a lot of lecture, and not so much group work. So I wanted kind of a radical change in that. I wanted to experience something different, a different type of teaching, different type of learning. And definitely the Nordics kind of represented that change for me. So I decided to, try a different approach. Also, one thing that I was curious to to experience at Aalto was also the well-being approach and the focus on well-being aside from just the technical side of things. So engineering in my field is also paired a lot with understanding the human behavior, which is something that is not really addressed in engineering fields in Italy. And also, you know, the nature and everything around Finland kind of brings me at peace and you know, brings a lot of value to my life here. So I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I came.
Yeah, that's great. And there are a lot of various kinds of engineering disciplines that you can choose from to study as your master's degree at Aalto. So that's very great. So what is the best part about studying at Aalto? We know that there are a lot of amazing things about studying here. So if there is one thing that you could pinpoint about being the best part, what would it be? Would Simone like to start?
Yeah, sure thing. So for me, it's 100% the community and the benefits that the students get here. I've never been part of such a, you know, tight community that encompasses so many people from so many countries all over the world, which you would not really expect in Finland, right? But when I got here, I was mind blown by how there's literally people from every corner of the globe, and they all come together, and there's a lot of events, a lot of things happening, and again, the student benefits, which I'm sure we'll cover later, are also a great perk. But definitely, yeah, the community inside of Otaniemi, which is our campus, beautiful campus, is something special that I've been loving since day one for sure.
That's great. And how about Shenyu? Do you have something to add about your
Yes,
part of your experience?
yes, I totally agree with Simon that in campus we have like really a lot of activities even every day. Yes, and you can join like students community and as you want. There are a lot of them, and I have a picture here for the pasta bolognese which is offered on every Wednesday in Tafa. I think it's the famous like student meal in the campus. I really like it. Also, you can meet a lot of like animals in campus every day, so it's really cute and really healing for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the
Yeah,
spaghetti bolognese. Like
As,
you
as an Italian, I
yeah.
cannot, but I'll leave you to it.
okay, we'll try it.
All right. So moving on to the next part, what made you want to study your field? So I see, Willow, you have these pictures on the right side. Would you like to elaborate on those and why you decide to study what you study?
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of mentioned a little bit in the previous slide that I'm from a place there's a lot of oil resources. So a lot of our education, a lot of our society is kind of based around, you know, fossil fuels and petrochemicals. And while this was definitely a great like technical environment to learn a lot about chemical engineering in, looking forward into the future, I wanted to tackle something a little bit more future focused and more sustainable. So sustainable energy and sustainable materials is something that's really interested me for a long time. And especially when I learned about the concept of bioeconomy and biorefinery, to me, that seemed like a really great way to use the chemical engineering foundation I had gotten from my bachelor's degree in order to further these sustainable development goals. So that's using plant resources, which is another reason that I think I really wanted to come study in Finland, where there's also a lot of knowledge about these subjects. Using these resources to make the products that we're now currently getting from fossil sources in order to enable more of a circular economy where we can reutilize and integrate more natural resources and sustainable practices into how we fulfill our needs as a society. That's something that really appealed to me, and that's something I wanted to be a part of. And it's also what brought me to Aalto.
That's very great to hear. Thank you for sharing. Simone, how about you?
And so I've always been, so I'm studying urban mobility, right? So transportation field and moving of things and people. And I've always been fascinated by that world. And how how our world is so interconnected and allows us, to kind of mix cultures, mix backgrounds all together. But I also have been very passionate about the sustainability aspect. Especially in the past few years, I've integrated that into my lifestyle more and more. And so my program kind of encompasses both things, right? So we have the sustainability into transportation and also the innovation and entrepreneurship part that is also very valuable to me to kind of progress forward and try to make sure that we achieve as many sustainability goals as possible. So that is definitely my motivation and my drive into what I'm studying.
Thank you so much. We should move to the next slide, and here we tell us about what your studies are like. So tell us about how your courses are structured, how your courses are divided throughout the year and such. So Shenyu, would you like to share?
Yes, I think in Aalto the courses are really flexible because you have your major here, of course, and in the major you can choose whatever you want to take. And in my major, there's some course like human-computer interaction and also UI construction. If you want to do some machine learning, you can also choose course related to that. And other than that, you can also choose minors as you want. So it's really happy for me. And I can take a lot of arts course as well. So basically I have finished my major courses last year, and this year I'm taking my minor. And at the same time I'm doing my master thesis as well. So it's quite smoothly.
All right, yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And how about Willow? How would you describe the structure of your studies?
So this is the picture here on the slide is one of a picture that I took in my lab classes, and I wanted to bring it up because it's pretty. I thought it was quite cool, and also just to show that we have a lot of lab components to our studies here at Aalto, which is something I really enjoy. I think we get a lot of chance to be like hands-on in the lab and develop skills that we're going to use, in our future education or future careers. So this is from my class called Plant Biomass. So looking at the structure and composition of different woods, especially. So I'm taking some classes about polymers and fibers, mostly, specifically like bio components like biopolymers and polymer synthesis. So that really was I had a little bit less flexibility in choosing my courses because it's a joint program. So this kind of structure was already set out for us about what kind of goals the program had for us, which has been good to have some kind of direction and make sure that we're taking classes that complement each other. That's something I've really enjoyed this semester at Aalto, is that we'll learn about one aspect of something in, say, plant biomass, and then learn more about that in our cellulose-based fibers class. And it really helps to paint a big comprehensive picture of what we're trying to learn about. So that's something I really enjoyed.
That's very interesting, actually. Yeah. And also, as Shenyu mentioned, that the studies are very flexible at Aalto, and that she also took courses in arts, which actually is a topic that comes in the next slide. That what kind of multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary opportunities there are in your studies and at Aalto. So would Simone like to share what these opportunities are like at Aalto?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that is very unique to Aalto, at least compared to my previous experience, is that you can take courses from other schools as well, and you can try them out, especially in the beginning. It's very, very much recommended. So definitely the opportunity to span across different subjects is there. In my case, I haven't been able to do that because just like my schedule and my structure is pretty strict in terms of EIT and what the program entails, but definitely that is an opportunity. As far as other kinds of opportunities within Aalto, there are of course a lot of societies and a lot of clubs that allow you to kind of either take seminars or take out of or extracurricularly courses that are going to be that you can implement within your studies. But that is definitely something that I appreciate, and the fact that you take some classes in different buildings and classes in other schools that allows you to kind of mix these disciplines together and gain from other people who might be in your class that are from a totally different background, and give you their perspective that comes from a very, very different place than yours, perhaps.
Yes, yes, definitely. And Willow, would you like to add something onto that?
Yeah, for sure. So what I'm studying, which is bioeconomy and biorefinery, brings together a lot of different scientific disciplines, as well as some kind of more economic ones as well, and design. So the figure I made is a 3-side Venn diagram of chemistry, biology, and engineering are all kind of big parts of what I'm studying. And actually, reflected in our program, there are people with biology backgrounds, someone with biomedical, someone in food science, me in chemical engineering, some other pure chemists. So all being in such a multidisciplinary background and working together in our group projects is a really great opportunity to work with people with different skill sets, learn a lot from each other. Then if I had enough artistic skills to make this 3D Venn diagram, I would also add design and economics to this as well, because whenever you're designing solutions with the scientific background to then make something work for technology, you also have to consider elements of like aesthetics and also economics. And these are things that we get to learn about here at Aalto, and especially when it comes to the interface between these subjects, which is something that's been really interesting as well, because a lot of times you learn about art or you learn about chemistry, but you don't necessarily learn about how you can combine chemistry and art like they do. And there's a minor program, Chem Arts, also that has both of those components. So I think that's really unique, and it's something I've never seen before at any of the other universities I've been at.
Yes, yes, definitely. And in addition to multidisciplinary opportunities within the studies, there's also outside the studies, like cross-disciplinary, where we have something called the Design Factory, where people from all disciplines, from arts, business, or engineering, can go there and work together to create solutions to modern day problems, whether it's just debating or designing something. Everyone is gathered together and work together and actually learn from each other. So I think that's something very unique to Aalto University and something to keep in mind. Thank you everyone for sharing. And now here is a picture, a screenshot of Simone's course load. So would you like to start by sharing to tell us about what it's like, what your courses are like, and how heavy it is?
Absolutely. So this picture, I agree that it's pretty bland, but to me, it represents perhaps the biggest and the contrast to what education I was used to having, right? Because if you look at this plan, you would think that we're not doing anything, right? Like we have a couple hours on Monday, a couple hours on Tuesday, Friday is off, and basically that's it. But this represents the main difference for me, because in my program, we have about 80% of the work is done at home and in group work, right? So that is how my program is structured. And so this means that those first hours on Monday, we wake up and we meet our groups, or I work on my own assignments. And the same goes for Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Thursday, and then Friday is of course another study day. So if we were, for example, in Italy, in my case, this would be a totally filled schedule, totally packed with lectures. Well, here it's totally different. And I think this is what actually I was looking forward to, right? This is what I came here for, right? Being able to get some guidance during the lectures and get some theories that are going to be useful for your work, but then apply that on your own. So for example, today, to give you an example, I woke up early this morning because one of our assignments was going into the city center of Helsinki and observe e-scooters and how they move around and get some data from that. So I dedicated 2 hours of that in the city center of Helsinki. So no lecture time, right? I was on my own in the city with another student, and we were just getting data, observing people, observing how transportation works, observing how things are. And this is what I really do appreciate. And of course, the course load in this picture looks like it's very minimal, but it is very productive and very Still very, pretty heavy coursework, if you will, but it's very, very structured in a different way than what I was used to, and that what I feel like most other places are used to, and that is definitely something I'm happy to have and experience.
Thank you very much for your input. Shenyu, would you like to add on to how many credits is usually in one course, and how many courses usually take per period? Perhaps mention how many periods we have per study year.
Oh yeah, of course. I think normally we have 5 credits for each course, and for some course it can be 3 credits or more than that, like even 12 credits, as I have seen. So it's the biggest course that I think. And I think for each semester, like 30 credits should be taken, as I remember correctly, yeah. And for each semester, there's like 2 periods for the autumn semester and 3 periods for the spring semester, yep. And I think now I have take already 75 credits, so it's quite smoothly for me to start the master thesis as well as some other courses.
Yeah. All right. So
Yeah.
like 5 periods altogether in 1 year.
Yeah. 5 periods.
All right. Thank you very much, Shenyu. Let us move to the next section, where we see Shenyu's schedule on the right, and it's basically a typical day of an Aalto University student. Shenyu, would you like to elaborate on your schedule?
Oh yeah, I see there's actually a minor mistake because this lecture normally start at 10. Okay, but it's fine. Yep. I think I usually wake up at 8, but sometimes a little bit late because sometimes you can have breakfast very quickly. Yeah, and normally, as Simon mentioned, the lecture won't last for so long, and we have tutoring usually on in the afternoon, so it's for group work. And for lunch, we usually have lunch with our classmates and campus, so it's quite nice. And I think for the dinner time, there is also one restaurant open in A block, so you can also take dinner there. And for the rest of all the time, you can arrange yourself, so it's quite nice.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, of course, like a lot of students' schedules can vary, but it's
Yeah.
nice to see, like, for example, in Shenyu's schedule, that she has also extracurricular activities, and that's what Aalto offers: a lot of sports activities, opportunities, and clubs and associations, which we will get to in student life when we talk about it soon.
Yeah.
So the next section, next theme that we'll be talking about is the campus. So you can see a picture of our lovely campus, and it is surrounded by nature and many trees, and we even have a lake close to our campus. Under the building, the main building, we have our own metro station, which is easy to use, and you can get to the Helsinki city center in just 10 minutes. So it's definitely a mix between nature and city life, and that's what's great about Aalto University. So would Willow like to start by telling us about what the campus is like? For example, the size, the facilities.
Yeah, so the campus is pretty big, but I think most of everything's quite walkable. So I live on one of the student residences, and it takes me about 18 minutes to get to my class, and I know exactly how late I can leave and still be there on time, so I can sleep in as much as I can in the morning. But the campus, everything's quite new, and so the facilities are really nice. The infrastructure is quite pretty. And a lot of the buildings have a really nice common theme to it. That's one thing that really struck me when I came here, is that everything goes nicely together because it's all around the same time and like a similar design style. And there's a lot of nature. That's kind of the biggest thing around here. I mean, when I walk to my classes, I can either take the fastest route or I can take about 1 extra minute if I have some time and walk like right along the water, through all the trees and everything, to get to my classes. And I think that's really beautiful. It's one of my favorite things about being here is how we're constantly surrounded by nature and trees, and we're right next to the water. It feels like being on like a beach vacation all the time without the warm temperatures, but more or less. It's like taking nature hikes, like just to get to your classes. I think it's beautiful. But of course there's also good paths and everything, and you can cycle around everywhere. I personally walk more than cycle, but it's very accessible for whatever your preferred mode of transport is. I think it's very walkable, and yeah, I really like the campus. That's one thing that impressed me a lot when I got here about a month ago.
Yes, definitely. So you get like both, best of both worlds.
For sure. It feels like you get all the best parts of being in the wilderness, but also everything's nicely developed and it's convenient.
Yes, that's great. Thank you, Willow, for sharing. We have to move to the next slide. Simone, can you tell us about your favorite thing about the campus?
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with Willow that the nature is definitely the number one part, even for me. I don't live on campus, so I have to travel or commute to campus from the city. But definitely also all the services that are provided on campus, from food to the gyms, to all the various saunas that are present on campus, everything is very much stimulate or motivating, and it kind of motivates you to your studies and to learning and to developing yourself professionally and personally. For example, for us for EIT, we have our own building where we can go to and kind of work together. So all these different facilities are definitely the number one thing for me in terms of feeling part of some like a university that supports your learning and that pushes you forward into your studies and to your educational career.
Yes.
And also, as you can see in the picture, the robots are also like another cool part about campus.
Would you like to mention what they do?
Yeah, for sure. So these are Starship robots, and they are used by one of the supermarkets, the grocery stores on campus, and they basically deliver food and groceries to students on campus. Of course, there are also in other parts of the city, but Otaniemi, which is where the campus is one of the more iconic places. And when you walk to class or you move around campus, you definitely see them roaming around, and they also they kind of become like part of the environment. They also can almost become like little human beings that you kind of live with to a certain degree, and so they definitely make the campus more lively.
Yeah, definitely. And there's this tradition where when you see one, you have to like pat it.
Yeah.
So it's nice. And there are a lot of lovely things about the campus. And one thing that really stands out to me is the architecture, how Aalto University has managed to, even with its new buildings, they've managed to maintain the same concept as our architect Alvar Aalto when he built the university campus in the beginning. They've managed to keep the same design pretty much. So that's why I think makes Aalto University really nice and unique. So the next theme of our webinar is housing and student benefits. Something to point out, very nice thing to point out, is that students in Finland do receive a lot of benefits from the state. And first thing about the student benefits is, of course, student housing. Would Willow like to talk about the kind of housing options that are offered to students?
Yeah, for sure. So there's two main providers of student housing. One is the HOAS, the Helsinki Association, and that provides like housing in the Helsinki area. So I know a little bit less about that and more about AYY, which is the student union, because I'm with the student union in their housing. The little picture is of my breakfast the other day on my balcony, and I included that because I've never seen student housing that has balconies before. That was something that really shocked me. I've lived in a lot of student housing, and this is by far the best, by far the nicest, and the least expensive as well. So it's like perfect together. For student housing is something that's really, really nice here, and that's something I didn't expect when I first came. Right now I'm at home, I'm looking out my window and I see a bunch of beautiful trees around me in my balcony, and it's really great. I can like drink my coffee on the balcony every day, and it's nice, like student pricing. And we do one big application for student housing for each of the associations, and then you choose which places you would want to live, and then based on their availability they will come back to you with an offer. So you define your budget, you define where you'd want to live. Other things, like if you need a wheelchair accessibility, you can check that off on your application, and they'll find something that works for you. Yeah, it's quite an easy process. It does take a little bit of time, and so you have to be a little bit patient, but yeah, it's quite simple. And I can only speak to the ones that I'm in and the ones that my friends are in, but they're nice options, and they're really, really reasonably priced.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing to point out is that for international students, if you are in AYY and Hawass, when you are applying for housing and you come from abroad or come from a different city and you are in need of a place to stay, then they do have this priority system where they put you in priority. So basically, you are more likely to get the apartment first before any other students, since you are more in need than other domestic ones, for example. So that's something to point out. And Shani, would you like to briefly tell us about the kind of apartments there are on campus? Are there a lot of apartment options, housing options around campus and outside as well?
Yeah, of course, there are a lot of apartments in campus, because I live in AYY area and I know all my friends that live here. So they offer a lot of apartments for international students. That's true. And you can choose if you want to live with your friends, you can apply for friend apartments as well. Then you two can live in one apartment that you can share your kitchen or the common area. And if you want to live independently, you can apply for single room apartment or studio apartment. But studio, I think, is hard to get in the same time.
So the priority
single room,
the priority works for shared apartments.
for shared
studio
apartments. For studio, there's no priority thing.
Yeah,
but it's nice that when you are living in a single apartment, that you also have a lot of like neighbors here that you can share the community room and you can talk with each other, because you are all from different countries in the same time. So it's nice.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much for your input. The next question is it easy to get to campus? There are, of course, students living outside of campus. So Simone, would you like to tell us about the experience of getting to campus? Is it easy, and how long does it usually take, and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. As a transportation engineer, this is definitely, one of the topics I do appreciate. And I've been very impressed with the transit system here in Helsinki. I live in the Helsinki city area, but towards the side of campus. And so that's about 4 stops away by metro. And that takes me, by the time I get out of my apartment to the station, onto the metro, and then out of the station to class, it takes me between 20 to 25 minutes. But I've also recently started biking to class, and that takes me also about 25 to 30 minutes as well. The bike infrastructure is pretty good. I'm waiting to see how the winter will be, but I'm definitely very happy with it, and the commute is very easy. And also I've been impressed with the frequency that, for example, the metro comes at, or the tram system as well. There are trains every 3 to 4 minutes at rush hours, and trams as well. As for students, you also get a discount on the HSL monthly ticket or monthly pass, which is 35 euros or 35 or 36 euros, while normally I believe it's around 70. So it's quite a big discount, and it's a pretty good benefit to have on that side as well. So definitely, of course, some places are a bit more hard to reach and everything, but most likely there is transit going to and from campus, and that will take you there fairly easily and in a decent amount of time.
Yeah, definitely. And the HSL app, I think you get 45% discount. That's precisely the amount of discount that students get. And it is great that like Aldo has, it's like accommodating all kinds of transportation from metro to bike routes, like you mentioned. And we're getting a tram system working already in next year, like 2023. So that's amazing. So the campus is very easy to get to in general. And what kind of student benefits are there in terms of, for example, when you have the student card, what kind of discounts do you get? Willow, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, so the biggest one is the student meals, at least for me, and also the transit. With the student card on the Frank app, which is the app that we have our student card on, it also gives you discounts. We get very subsidized meals, so it's actually like quite cheap to eat compared to going outside and cooking your own food. There's also different stores around have discounts for students, and on the Frank app you have like promos and notifications, and based on what the deals are in your area. I haven't used it quite as much because I like to eat on campus. The food's quite good and it's really cheap. So, and as for shopping, we have an on-campus like buy and sell group where people will sell the things. For example, if they're moving out or if they want to sell some things. So I think I do more, I guess, kind of secondhand buy and sell shopping around campus than I do like buying new things. But there's also discounts from like home goods to clothing, all of that stuff. So there's most things you could probably find student discounts on.
Yes, definitely. And by when you start your studies, you pay a certain fee that is actually quite cheap of 30 euros per semester to AYY, the student union. And then you can use all kinds of facilities offered by AYY for free. And they offer a lot of things. For example, saunas, common rooms, to renting a van or and even more. And also one of the key student benefits here that weren't perhaps highlighted was the Finnish Student Health Service, which is a free health service to students only when you pay a certain fee, I think also of 30 euros per semester.
Yeah, I can add to that if you want real quick, because there has recently been a change actually for European Union citizens. If you have Social Security through the European Union, that fee is now not mandatory to be paid. And so you basically just have to prove that you have Social Security card and you have free healthcare here. So for example, the dentist is free, and which was pretty mind-blowing to me when I heard that. But yeah, definitely a great thing. That was a recent change that just happened, so I want to highlight that for the European people and the audience.
Yes, thank you so much, Simone, for correcting. And yeah, so that what Simone just said really does show how nice the student benefits are in Finland. So moving on to our next theme, our career opportunities. And I feel like this is a really keen topic for master's studies. So would Simone like to start by talking about the possibilities of combining work during studies?
Yeah, definitely. I've been very impressed to hear that basically most of the students here, at least the Finnish ones, actually do work, and some of them even full time. So definitely is a possibility. Me myself, we work here at Alto for the what we call the Alto Squad, and also have another part-time job. Of course, the more flexible the job is, the better, in the sense that you can fit that into your schedule a bit more. But definitely part-time job is very doable, sometimes even full-time from what I hear. So if you're interested in doing that, I would say that maybe it takes a bit more organization and planning, but definitely very much doable.
Yes, thank you. And Shenyu, would you like to add anything on top of what Simone just said? For example, where can you find such job that you can, for example, combine with your studies? Can you find jobs from at the university, for example?
Yes, actually, we have a website called Alto Workday, and I think there's like a lot of job opportunities there, just internet for Alto students, and you can find a lot of opportunity there because I found a internship there, and I think for internship as international students you can do it full time, but when you starts you can do like 30 hours one per week. That's the limit for international students, but it's totally fine for me. So I think it's nice. And also when you are doing master thesis, you can seek for opportunities in companies, and they will also pay for students. That's really cool.
Yes, thank you very much. And actually, in complement to this question, what kind of career opportunities are offered after graduation and actually during studies as well? Would Willow like to start?
Yeah, so around Finland, their Aalto University has a lot of like partnerships with different industry partners. So for example, if you want to, for example, get like a summer job with a prof, they might have partnerships with one of the companies in the industry, so you can get a chance to see what kind of projects are out there and maybe look at where you might want to work in the future. Personally, I'm looking to do a PhD when I finish my master's, so that's kind of the main direction that I'm looking. And then in the future, look at in research and development for the kind of biotechnology solutions that I'm studying. But there's a lot of groups, for example, the Startup Zona and Alto ES, that give students more of an insight into what kind of career options are out there, and help prepare you for your future career when you finish your studies. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities to learn about how to make yourself more employable and to connect you with the first jobs that you're going to be looking for after your graduation.
Yeah, and are there fairs provided by the university, or like are there like companies that come and introduce themselves a lot?
Yeah, definitely. So in my time here, I've been to I think a conference and one or two fairs where I've met a couple people from industry and also from tech, which is like a almost like a union, like for protection of the engineers, at least is how the context that I saw them from, about what your workplace rights should be. Even when it comes to things like they would review your internship contracts or your job contracts to make sure that you're getting a good deal, and they can help you out with all of those things. So that's a really helpful resource that is present on campus.
Yes, thank you very much. And Simone, would you like to add on top of that anything? For example, what life after graduation looks like as a fresh Alto graduate?
Absolutely, yeah. So kind of to draw on Willow's point about Alto ES, which is Alto Entrepreneurship Society. Alto pushes a lot on innovation and entrepreneurship. So definitely the startup world, if you're interested into that, there is very, very big and motivating ecosystem here. A lot of big companies came out of Alto and still are coming. So definitely that is one path. But otherwise, also to your point, there are a lot of events that are sponsored by companies. For example, I just came off of an event. I went up to Northern Finland in Oulu. That was sponsored by Rumble, and all students in the transportation engineering field went up for free. So these are all opportunities that are offered to students here, and that kind of allow you to dip your toes in different fields and different environments and see what fits best for you. Definitely a lot of internship opportunities can come out of here by talking to your professors as well. The relationship with professors is much more or is much closer than what I was used to. So definitely professors are a great resource for that, as they're connected, of course, to the industrial ecosystem, to the environment, to the work environment around Finland. So they're also a precious resource indeed.
Yes, definitely. And Alto is known for its active recruitment from companies and really good employability rate after graduation. And it's also good to mention that there are a lot of clubs and associations that are kind of like themed around helping you boost your career after graduation or even during your studies, like Willow and Simone mentioned the Alto ES, which is the Alto Entrepreneurship Society, where you can like actually like apply your skills and knowledge that you learned during your studies and kind of even boost your career in entrepreneurship in the future. So there are a lot of clubs and societies that are focused around your field of study and how to kind of like kind of boost your career in that field after graduation. All right, thank you very much, guys. Now we move on to a really exciting theme, the student life. As you can see on the right, maybe some of the participants aren't familiar with what we call overalls, so what these two characters are wearing, but our lovely panelists will get into explaining more of that in the next slide. So Willow, would you like to talk about what Finnish student culture is like, and perhaps enlighten us about what overalls are?
So I think I put in this picture, you can see in the lecture hall from our first day, you see people wearing different colored overalls. And that is a tradition that I think most students in Alto are a part of, where every school will have different overalls that represent the students from their school. So for example, I'm in the School of Chemical Engineering and they're blue. The School of Engineering, you can see is pink, that Simone is in. And so all of these different schools have different colors overalls that a lot of students will wear around to their classes, but especially for these kinds of events where they kind of show their school spirit. And there you can see a lot of, maybe if you can see closely, you can see patches on the overalls that people can sew from the different events that they go to, the different groups they're a part of, that show a little bit about what they enjoy, what they like, and how much they appreciate the student community, which I think is really great. And I've been to, I think this is the fourth university I've been to, and I was very surprised at how many students were involved with all the activities. There's lots of student activities, like whether it be trips or parties or group dinners or or more career kind of focused serious things as well. It's not just about the parties. And it was very pleasantly surprising to me how many people were participating in this, and even such that some of them are the tickets are so in demand that people will like line up for a really long time outside of the ticket sales booths. I did that actually for this cruise that Alto students are going on at the end of November. I camped out overnight in a tent so that I could make sure I got tickets. And yeah, there's a lot of events going on and everyone's very enthusiastic about it. And I think that's really great. And the overalls are also like a fun visual representation of that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And there is always something going on. Like every day, you'll find something. It's just like a matter of balancing your studies with the social part. Shenyu,
Can I
would you?
add something else? Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
Is that there's a lot of events, but there's also a lot of student groups. So I'm involved in an orchestra, and I'm also doing like in a dance group that's through student culture, student student clubs and organizations. And so this is something that also um, you have chances to learn a new skill, meet other people who are interested in what you're interested in. I get to play the trumpet. I've played the trumpet for quite a while, but of course, as an international student moving around, you don't really get to bring your instrument with you and everything. So, but there's opportunities to get involved in whatever your hobbies are, and have fun with it and meet other people that like the same thing.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for your input, Willow. And Shenyu, would you like to add on top of that about your experience in the Finnish student culture and Finnish student life, especially if you could talk about the types of associations and clubs varying from, field specific or just chilling, having fun.
Yes, I think as my experience, I joined Junction for this year, and I think it's really nice to be part of Junction because we have a lot of internal activities and as well as like activities for other people during the orientation week. Like we have a huge, how to say, uh, fun fair for everyone, like new students, and you can eat hot dog there and meet others in the campus. So it's really nice. And for overall, I think for science, for School of Science, it's just shining black, and I really love collecting patches from every event. So it's really nice.
Yes,
And
and
for clubs, I don't have any memory because I just live near to Smoky, and Smoky is the biggest student club in the campus, and I can hear like every night there is a lot of events there, and I have been there once. It's really cool to have a place like that.
yes, definitely. It's a
Yeah.
nice kind of like common room to rent
Hmm.
to host events and stuff.
Yeah.
Simone, do you have anything to add about your student life experience?
Well, I mean, I definitely agree with everything that was said. I really enjoy going to at least one or two events/talks that are presented each week by various clubs. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, not much to add to what was said. But other than I'm waiting for my overalls impatiently, and I can't wait to wear them and try them on and kind of be part of the Tekkari culture. And then also, as you can see. Some students are wearing hats, the Tekkari hat, which is very typical and that kind of symbolizes the community here. And it's a hat that can only be worn in a certain period of the year, from sometime in spring until, well, last week, I think, was the celebration when all the Tekkari hats were taken off by all the students. And so no one can wear them until I believe it's May. And you can also get them only if you achieve certain or if you do certain activities and if you complete certain tasks. So that kind of builds onto the community feeling that we said earlier. And so that is definitely something I've enjoyed being a part of.
Yes, thank you very much. And it definitely like sewing patches on the overalls is a nice way to like basically tell your story because it's from every event you get a patch that you go to. So it's kind of like telling your story about where you've been and so on. So Finnish student culture is very unique and it's very nice. Um, so Shenyu, would you like to tell us about what you like to do in your free time?
Yes, I think one of my favorite activities is to go to a lot of museums in Helsinki because uh you can apply for a museum card here is just cost 75 euros per year, I think, and you are entitled for free like interest for almost all of the museums in Finland. So it's really nice. And one of the famous is the Amos Rex, which is located near to Gambi, I think. And also, I love the botanic gardens in Helsinki. Other than that, I will like go for a trip near Finland, like Sweden, and as well as some places in the Central Europe. It's really nice to travel. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very nice. And the Helsinki city does offer a lot of
Yeah,
activities.
activities.
Even just around campus itself, there are so many activities that you could do. We have to ramp up a bit, so we have a bit more time for the Q&A session, but we'll move to the last theme, which is Aalto community. And Aalto community is very diverse and multidisciplinary, and we're actually one of the most international universities in the world. So do keep in mind that when considering applying to Aalto. Would you like to tell us, Willow, about how you were welcomed to the Aalto community? How easy was it to integrate into the Aalto community and just the Helsinki Espoo city?
It was a lot easier than I thought it would be. And I'm very happy about that because I think sometimes as an international student or an exchange student, you have a little bit that international student bubble or the exchange student bubble. I've experienced this in some previous experiences where you don't actually really get to meet the other students very much, or like you only actually go to international or exchange events. But that has not been the case here at all. There's actually a lot of events where I've been able to meet different people studying different things, whether they be Finnish people or people from all over. And I think part of the reason is because Aalto is so international as a university. As in someone who doesn't speak Finnish, I mean, a lot of the events are held in English, which just really helps you to feel welcome, especially all the signs have English on them. And little things like that. It means you always know where you're going, and it can be really helpful for getting into the campus and also especially the student life because there's such a large international population here. I've never really felt that, that I couldn't do something or I hadn't been here long enough to do something. I've really been encouraged to participate in different traditions, going to saunas and everything that was different from how it was in my home country. I was kind of encouraged to come with the locals and participate in these kinds of whether it be student events or just general, I guess, cultural traditions, which has been really, really nice.
That's really nice. And how about Simone, would you like to tell us about how you were welcome? For example, what kind of events were hosted for international students and so on?
Of course. So I arrived right before the beginning of orientation week, which is the first week basically of the year, where there are no lectures, but students are introduced to the structure of the school, of the university. So every student is part of a guild, and I'm part of the Guild of Surveying Engineers. So in each guild basically has their own room. They have their own captain, their own tutors, and that has been really, really helpful in introducing me to the entire community because I have my own tutor. I have a tutor group that we do a few things with. We did a campus tour the first few days. We were introduced to the different activities. We had a guild activity. We went to the sauna together. So all these things kind of introduced us to Aalto and to how things work here. Then if you're part of different programs, for example, for EIT, we have our own sub-community, let's say, that was also very, very helpful. But also, if you are interested in different activities and different hobbies and different things, there are again a lot of clubs that will allow you to kind of get integrated more and more and meet new people here and there. But definitely the guilds for me were the number one let's say waypoint to be welcomed into the community.
Yeah, definitely. And there are so many kinds of events are hosted that are held for especially like first year students, whether it's masters or bachelors. They sometimes host trips. Like I had a trip to this camp place where I think it's a good idea to like put everyone together, and then you're kind of like forced to know each other. And then there are like, you know, activities where you get to know different kinds of people from your guild. And I think that's a really nice thing. There are always events going on, and you always get to know new people every time you go to the events. So it's just all this one big lovely bubble, and everyone just seems to be comfortable around each other and know each other. So that's a great thing. And what is it like to be an international student at Alta? Shanyu, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, I think what it's like to be an international student at Aalto. I think at first it's nice to meet other international students here as well, and also there are a lot of Finnish students in our class, and actually for each course you will meet new people, so it's not so difficult to make friends here because like you are doing assignment together, you're doing group work together, and you can have lunch together. So I think it's really happy to be an international student at Aalto. I didn't feel any difficulties like living here or making friends here.
Yes, yes, that's really great. And Simone, do you have similar experiences, and would you like to add on to that about your experiences as an international student at Alta?
Yeah, for sure. So as I said, I've been very impressed by how there are people literally from every corner of the world. Here you can see a picture of the Esperanta Marathon that was going on, or that went on a couple weeks ago, that I went with other international students, and basically every single person in that picture is from a different country, and that is you know, one of the most beautiful things I think in education, to be able to experience that, to have people literally from every corner of the world. At one time was reflecting on that. I went climbing with a group of people, and it was one Italian, one Chinese, one Canadian, and one Mexican. And I don't think I've ever had the experience of having people from such different parts of the world in such an even small group, right? So you don't even need like a huge sample to be able to experience that. It's just, even the smallest group can encompass so much, and so much cultural richness that is that I think is beautiful. And also if you are part of such a community, I think you feel much more welcome, and you feel not alone, of course, because if you're one of a few, of course you come to Finland, then you feel a bit excluded, maybe you don't feel like you fit in. But here at Aalto, there is no one culture that is prevalent. It's all, I would say, you know, pretty balanced in that sense. And even the Finns are you know, maybe they're a bit more, they tend to be a bit more shy, but they're definitely worth being included in the international group, because they're the first ones who want to experience that internationality, and they also have a lot to share from their own culture. And so don't be overwhelmed, let's say, by the internationality only, or don't put your focus only there, but experience the Finnish culture as well, because that is also international to you, right? Like, you're in Finland, but Finland is still a new country, and there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to learn from their culture, and a lot of different things here to experience indeed.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, there is like that a known stereotype about a common Finn, but at Alta, like Willow mentioned, that international students don't always have their own bubble. Rather, it's just everyone is included in everything, and domestic students are combined with international students. Like everyone talks with each other, and everyone wants to communicate and network. And I think one of the biggest, like the best things about Alta is the networking is amazing here, that everyone just wants to know someone new, and socializing is like very easy, I'd say, in Alta. So that's what makes Alta University very international, and like a very good place to study and have friends, of course. Let's okay, so here of course, the Finnish language is new to international students, of course. So would Willow like to talk about whether it's possible to survive without knowing any Finnish and studying in Finland? And what are your experiences?
Yeah, I'm learning Finnish. I'm taking a class, but I'm really, really basic. So in terms of navigating like social situations or even like buying groceries, I'm still relying on English almost all the time. And it's definitely possible, especially around the student community. Um, Everything is mostly majority in English, but as you venture out, of course, into Helsinki, Finnish becomes the language of majority, but everyone also speaks English and is um, pretty happy to help you out if they need help reading something or like asking for directions and everything. Definitely possible to survive without knowing Finnish. I think it's nice to try. I think people are happy if you make an effort and say a couple things, say thank you in Finnish, kiitos. But yeah, it's definitely possible to survive. So you never really need to feel like there's a barrier to getting involved in things because you don't speak Finnish.
And a lot of events in Aalto University, whether it's academic or just parties, they always have things in English in both languages, even in Swedish, because Swedish is the second national language in Finland. But yeah, like everywhere you go, you will have an English translation somewhere, and someone will be able to translate anything to you and communicate. So that's what's great. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. And now we move on to the Q&A session. So the participants have sent us a few questions, and you lovely panelists get to answer them. So the first question we have here is, what is the price range for the housing in shared apartments? Would we have our own room and bathroom? Who would like, does someone have an answer? And
Yeah. So from what I know from my experience, the shared apartments range from 230-ish euros all the way up to 450 to 500 for a shared, at least through AYY and HOAS. I'm a bit more on the higher range of that. So it depends kind of on the location, but I think on campus it tends to be a bit cheaper for shared apartments as well. There are also like different kinds of shared apartments. So for example, in mine, I have my own room and I have a fridge inside my room, but then the bathrooms are shared. So we have a bathroom and a half, or 1.5 bathrooms, as they say, that I share with 2 other flatmates. But also on campus, there are some apartments that I know have a room, a private bathroom, a private fridge, but then the kitchen area is shared. And you share that with about 9 to 10 people from what I hear. So that is definitely another option. And those tend to be a bit cheaper, I think, because of that commonality with a lot of other people and other flatmates. But yeah, I would say between a 200 and let's say 200 and 500 euro range, that should include most of them, I would say.
yeah, definitely in the housing, there are a lot of room options and room outlines that you can choose from. That it's common in the US, for example, dorms that you and this other person would stay in the same room. But I say they exist in Finland, but it's very uncommon. Usually a shared apartment means that you have your own room, but you are in the same big apartment as other people. They're just other rooms right next to you. And you just share, like Simone said, a bathroom or a kitchen, depending on the outline.
I'll maybe just jump in with my experience. So I live on campus. I really like the location, but I'm definitely in the lower end of that price range. My rent, I don't know if I should say numbers, but it's like 270 a month, which is not very much. Actually, the least I've paid in to stay in any of the countries I've lived in. And I applied with my friends. So we each have our own room. We share a kitchen. There's even an oven. I've never seen a student residence with an oven before. I love my apartment. There's a full fridge. There's like a stove, sink, oven, normal kitchen, and then we share a bathroom. So that's really been great. I mean, it's inexpensive, it's close to campus, and you're only sharing with one person. So last semester I did have a residence experience where I shared with 60 people for the kitchen and the bathroom, which was something. And sharing with only one other person is really nice.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your experience as well. Let's move on to the next question. What is the average age of the master's class at Aldo? I have more than 12 years of work experience after my bachelor's, and I want to know if my classmates would be somewhat experienced. So what is the average like age group that you see in a master's class in Aldo?
So this-
Actually, yep.
Go ahead.
Yep. Actually, I don't know how to say, because normally we don't ask people's ages when we are classmates. And as far as I see, there's half and half, and like half of the classmates just go to master after they finish their bachelor studies, and half of the classmates have their like work experience up to 3 years or 10 years. I don't remember correctly, but it's possible to apply if you have a lot of work experience. Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say, most people that I know are around the kind of like 23 to 26 age group, but there are also people in my class that have been probably 10 or so years of work experience. Not, in my program, it's less than half, but there's definitely quite a few people. So I definitely wouldn't feel like it would be like you'd be alienated or anything like that. That's definitely not the case. And there's lots of people in very different situations. And I think having different backgrounds is something that makes the programs really strong, especially when it comes to group work and everyone's different experiences coming together.
Yeah, to give a brief example, if I can, there's one student in my class who's over 50, and she has worked for lots of years. I would assume around 20 years, if not more, and kind of now wants to, I don't know if reinvent herself is the right word, but like, change her path radically. So it's, definitely possible, definitely something that is, I wouldn't say extremely common, but that you see quite often.
Yeah, and definitely like in Finland, like it's known that like there is no barrier to when you can stop studying. I mean, especially in Aalto, like you will never be alienated. Like Willow said, there are always so many different kinds of age groups, and anyone can apply and study whenever they want. And it's just in general the social atmosphere in Aalto is great enough that whatever race or sex or age you are, there will always be something for you and the group for you, and everyone is just so social that there is nothing to worry about in terms of having to be worried about whether you're too old for the program or not. So definitely this is something to take into consideration, that don't worry about the age. And the age group is quite diverse, so it's hard to tell that there are only like 20-year-olds, 26-year-olds, and there are like no 40-year-olds or so on. There's always a mix. That's why it's kind of difficult to tell whether there are like a specific group or not. All right. Then another question is, as a student, do you get guidance on career planning when you enroll to Aalto? Would anyone like to share?
I don't have personal experience, but I mean, definitely, yes, there are a lot of opportunities in that sense. I don't know if anyone has.
Well, there are a lot of career services at Aalto.
Yeah.
There's like the whole career service point. And in general, even like there are so many associations like Alto Investment Club, Alto Entrepreneurship Society, all kinds of societies related to engineering and a specific field of engineering. And they usually host company excursions, for example, that help you, for example, plan your CV or plan your interview, practice your interview, or just like how to apply to these companies. And even companies come and want to recruit you because in the guild that you're in, there are sponsors. For example, companies that sponsor you, and these companies often also want to recruit people from that guild. So that is really nice. So so there is a lot of career planning help at Alto, and there is so many clubs and associations that you can join, and events that you can join for free that help you formulate your CV and really like strengthen your career prospects. So yeah. And then one last question.
Jump in on this. I haven't had this experience personally, but a lot of degree students have like a tutor that they're, or not a tutor, but an advisor that they're matched with. In most programs, they, each student will have someone to whom they can ask these questions, and they meet periodically to discuss, how things are going. Do they need any more support? What classes should they take? What should they be like looking to do after graduation? Yeah, so a lot of my colleagues have access to this. As a double degree student, I've had a little bit of a different experience, but for most degree students, they have access to that, at least in the School of Chemical Engineering that I'm in. And so that's definitely very helpful to students if you have questions about, not just about your courses specifically, but should I take this option or that option, and which one would be better for me and the study skills I want to cultivate. So that's helpful as well.
Yeah, and if you need any help or any advice in terms of career or well-being or anything, there is always someone to ask. There's always services and facilities that you can go to, and there will be people that will help you and guide you in anything. And there are the advisors, as Willow mentioned. And the good thing to point out is that it is very easy to approach professors and teacher assistants and so on. They're very easy to have a conversation with. So definitely, if you need any advice in terms of your career, ask your professor. They will, because here everyone is so social in that sense that they want to help anyone that is in front of them. And definitely professors here are really kind and are willing to answer any question that you need. So one last question before this Q&A session ends. What drawbacks or difficulties did you encounter with the flexibility of your studies?
For me, the only one I can think of is being a bit overwhelmed, perhaps with kind of choosing the courses that I wanted to follow in my study plan, to the point that I've just maybe now finalized my entire study plan. It took me about a month, in the sense that there are a lot of things to consider, a lot of interests that you might want to prioritize. That has been maybe my biggest, let's call it, issue, but it's not really an issue. If that was my problem, I would call myself pretty lucky, but that is definitely something. But if you're in the same position, there's definitely a lot of support from the tutors and the coordinators that can help you out in setting up your study plan and making sure that that it works. And also during orientation week, there's all the information that you need, and a lot of webinars, I believe, also coming up in the spring before enrollment, before all the procedures have to be done. But yeah, that was the only one I can think of, let's say.
Yeah. Would anyone else like to share?
Yes, I would like to say that I did choose a lot of courses last semester, and I have tried all of them, and unfortunately I dropped some of them, but I think it's okay to do that. that you can try a lot of courses, and then if you find that you are not interested in that, or you find the schedule doesn't fit, you can just drop it. But you can ask for coordinators when you are choosing these courses or you are arranging your study plan. So it's really helpful to get opinions from your coordinator. Yep.
Yeah,
One,
definitely.
oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, no, one thing that I could add perhaps is that, for example, for me, I was used to having a lot of guidance in my study, meaning it was very lecture based. And so everything was just structured by the professor. You just went to class, did your thing, and then kind of went home and studied when you had the exam. Here, of course, is for me is much more left onto you. So you have to be responsible. You have to be to kind of dedicate your own time to studying at home and saying, okay, I don't have a lecture tomorrow morning, but I still need to do my assignments. So of course, I have to dedicate this amount of hours, even though no one is going to come to tell me that I have to. So that is maybe the one, let's call it drawback or system shock that you might have at the beginning if you're not used to it.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll say maybe one thing, because there aren't a lot of limits, it's very open as to what you can do. You can take as many classes as you want. So if you're like me, you decided to take all your 30 credit courses and then 2 extra language courses, which is does get to be fairly dense schedule wise. But that's also something that you do have, as Jenny mentioned, the option to drop courses if you realize that you actually can't cope with the workload that you signed up for. And also you have people to help you if you need help prioritizing your time or scheduling your studies. So I would encourage you, if you are in that situation where there's something that interests you, but you don't know if you can manage it, I would encourage you to try, because I like the different courses. I like that you're allowed to take kind of whatever you want. If it's something that interests you, yeah, I think that's a great system. And as a university, you should be trying to, as a university student, you want to learn. So the more classes you can take, the better, to me.
Yeah, and definitely with flexibility comes curiosity to try a lot of different things. And sometimes it can go over each other, and it might feel a bit stressful, but the panelists have mentioned that it's really easy to drop out. And if you feel you can cope with all the courses, the extra courses that you've taken, you can drop out and take them again later. So it's that flexible. It's very flexible in that sense. And it's just all about balance, really. But this is all for Q&A, and I want to thank everyone and all the participants for the lovely questions and the enlightening questions. And thank you, panelists, for answering those questions very nicely. So now what's next is to apply to Aalto. This is the best step ever. And the application period for master's studies starts 1st of December 2022 and ends in 2nd of January 2023. So make sure to mark that down in your calendar and apply to Aalto between those dates. Also, if you have any specific questions regarding applying to Aalto and any admissions specific questions, there is the webinar tomorrow hosted by Aalto Admissions at 2 p.m. Finnish time. And you can join this webinar and ask any questions regarding admissions and applying, or you can also send an email to admissions@aalto.fi, this email address that you see in the slide. And if you have any general questions about studying at Aalto, Aalto Squad is here to help. So we are a group of student ambassadors, including me, that help prospective students with answering any questions that they have, or just guiding them to Aalto University. You can chat with us on Unibuddy, so you can find our profiles on the Aalto University website. Or you can join the squad for a Friday coffee session. So every Friday there is a coffee session where a group of Alto Squad members, so student ambassadors, sit down and just talk with any prospective students that decide to join the session. And it's pretty informal, and it's just a normal conversation. Any questions that you have generally about applying can be answered in those sessions as well. So I strongly advise you to join it. For any latest news, if you want to follow up the latest news or upcoming events at Aalto University, or need any useful links, make sure to check out Aalto University website, which is seen on the slide over there, and aalto.fi/studies. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And the upcoming webinars for the master's program specific webinars, they can be found, the registration links are found in the chat. So if you go in the chat, you can find them. And keep in mind that all the times that are mentioned in the times are in Finnish time. So take that into account. Yeah, so these are the webinars for the program specific. Yes, all right. And if there's nothing else, I just want to thank all the participants for joining. Thank you so much for coming. And we really hope to see you on campus next fall in 2023. And make sure to follow us on social media. You can see the icons are on where you can find us, including TikTok even, and go check out aalto.fi for more information. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.